Hey, I'm Daniel, and on this episode of the Filmcraziest Show, my guest was Sachin Dheeraj Mudigonda. His new film, a 24-minute documentary called Testimony of Anna, is currently on the festival circuit, currently playing at the Krakow Film Festival in Poland, after premiering at the Hot Docs Film Festival earlier this month. The film is about the life of Anaben Pawar, an elderly tribal woman accused of witchcraft in rural India. Also, just a note for this episode, I don't think my mic was plugged in properly, so my audio doesn't sound great at times. So I tried to work around it in post, and I also tried to replace some of the audio. So if this lip syncing is ever off, that's why. Here's Sachin to introduce the show to talk about his film Testimony of Anna.
Hi, my name is Sachin Dheeraj Mudigonda, and I'm the director, producer, and editor of Testimony of Anna. And you're listening to the Filmcraziest Show.
It's great to have you here. Sheesh. Sachin.
Yeah, you got it right.
Sorry. Okay, it's great to have you here. I'd love to start with the background of this documentary short. How did you hear about Anna's story?
Yeah, it was a kind of a long process, Daniel, because the state where I went to film, I actually did my undergraduate studies, but that was almost a decade ago. I was an engineer before I became a filmmaker. So I was in that region for almost 4 years of my life. So I was aware of such incidents, such news, like people being branded as witches, being lynched, like even elderly women feasting on, cattle and young children's souls. So all these news were there. It was at the back of my mind, but at that time I couldn't do anything with it. But I was curious about it as to why it was happening. And then almost a few years later, when I came to the United States to do my MFA program here, I got an opportunity to create a short film, to make a short film. And then I started digging back into my curiosities as to, what are the certain things that I'm keen on investigating. And then the more I researched about these attacks, me and my co-producer, my wife, she helped me get in touch with certain lawyers, some journalists back in India, and then they helped me connect to some people in the region, the locals. And then through them, once I met them on the field, then they were able to introduce me to a very few survivors of these witch hunt attacks, and Anaben was one of them. Fortunately, I was also supposed to meet another elderly couple because the elderly couple were branded as witches in that region, but unfortunately they died just a week or two before I arrived on the field because the attacks were so severe. It just happened at that time, and their bodies couldn't cope up with it.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
That is intense.
it is. Yeah, it is. It's a different world out there, and it's almost primitive level.
Why do these witch hunts happen?
It could be. I think it could be a lot of reasons. For example, let's say if a woman is outspoken, if a woman is brave enough, if she's standing up against the societal norms or even just the village norms per se, there's a desire to kind of target them and to make them leave the area so that there's no one opposing something against them, right? Or for example, if a person is inheriting a huge, not a huge, but some sort of property or a land from their dad or from their dead spouses, like some, because they live all alone in that property, they become vulnerable targets to kind of their main agenda is somehow to kind of have them flee from their village so that they can get control over their property or their land.
Oh, okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, it all boils down to these capitalistic desires.
Okay, so it's all intimidation tactic.
Yeah,
More so than witch hunt. Okay.
I think witch hunt is probably like sort of a name or a tag, that kind of allows them to do these sort of power related atrocities.
Like legally, I guess, but not legal at all.
Yeah. It happens everywhere, right? Like even in the area that I'm living in right now in Austin, right? It's United States, right? It's such a big nation, but I can see all these issues of gentrification that's been happening, like these big landlords trying to evacuate, the poor people in here, are trying to take over their lands to construct like bars and pubs and whatnot, right? It's happening in a different scale and at a different level. And back in rural India, it's happening in a different scale and at a different level.
Okay, I might have taken witch hunt a little bit literally.
Obviously, there's also that superstitious angle to it, because a lot of these victims, they happen to be sometimes religious. They pray in front of gods. They organize these rituals, these ceremonies that can be misunderstood for other folks.
Okay. Now, what was the research into that? And what was the research into sorry, I had it written down what a witch hunter is called, a bagat?
Bhagat, yeah.
Okay. What was that research like?
It was more like when I was researching about these guys, when I spoke to a lot of like the people in the field. There were the journalists and lawyers. They informed me that apparently 1 in 3 villages have these sorts of people. They call themselves bhagats, or they're basically are, I would say, they're an established practitioners who are considered to be like healers, or doctors who know a thing or two about medicine. Let's say if someone is sick in a village, they come and try to heal them by giving them tablets, medicines, and whatnot. And then these guys also happen to have a different angle to them, as if they have some sort of superpower to find out if there is a evil vibe in the village, and if a particular person is a witch or not. And they have these interesting tricks. They have like a village meeting, and then in front of the meeting they take a bowl full of water, and then they have these rice grains, and they put the grains in the water. And if one of the grains float, and if everything else sinks in, then they say, oh, this person is a witch. And then they just do some sort of tricks in an interesting way. I've never seen it personally, but I heard it's similar to a magic show, right? He's similar to a magician. Like his agenda is to have people amused, to buy into what they're saying, and then just manipulating them.
Yeah, and it's strange that something like that's happening in the modern day, right?
Yeah, and it's still happening. It's been happening for such a long time, and there's just no discourse around it, or no action against it.
Okay, yeah, because this is happening in, you said like 2010 when you were going to university there?
Yeah, I was in Gujarat from 2009, like around that time frame. But I'm pretty sure that was not the genesis of this. I think it was probably been happening since many years ago.
True. Okay. Sorry, what's the area called?
Oh, the area, Gujarat, the state of Gujarat, and the area that I went to is the southern part of Gujarat.
Okay. Now how big is the village that Anaben was in?
It was not that big at all.
Oh.
I mean, it had a population of less than 1,000, if I remember it correctly. And there are many villages around that area. So the region is called Ahwa, and Ahwa has around 150 villages or so around it.
Okay. How big was your documentary crew?
My core team was just 4 people. It was me, my cinematographer, cinematographer's assistant, and then a sound person. But like, because I was having the help of a lawyer as well as a journalist, the lawyer also performed, like he came on board as a line producer of the film.
Oh, cool.
So he was instrumental in getting us in touch with, a lot of people. And he also was kind enough to give us some translators and some production assistants to just kind of navigate through the village and everything.
Okay, so the film wouldn't have happened without him, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it was of major help because
Now,
we all were technically outsiders, and being an outsider, it's very difficult for you to kind of gain the other person's trust. So you need to have a person who's a local, or who can speak the language, who is part of that community.
okay. Did Anna trust you by the end of it?
She did, yeah, because we spent a lot of time with her. Eventually, she became comfortable, and she treated us as her family.
How long did you spend with her?
It was, I think, it was around a month and a half,
Okay.
almost. Like, yeah, we had to like just keep talking to her, and there were some days when we never used to film anything. We were just there helping her with her household chores or whatnot, and just talking to her.
Okay. Yeah, she's an interesting like main subject, so that must have been cool getting to know her.
Yeah, she is definitely an interesting person. So it definitely took a lot of time for us to even get her comfortable to kind of trust us. So
Okay.
it was a time-taking process.
How many hours of footage did you have?
I think it was around 20 or so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so funny. Out of 20 hours, I mean, the final duration is 24 minutes.
I was about to say, yeah, like just like a minute an hour.
Yeah, it was a lot.
What was that like editing it all, that footage, to make a story?
It was tough. I mean, the important uh, idea was to somehow convey it truthfully, and with some sort of genuinity. So initially, I had a lot of other material that I thought I would want to incorporate into the film, but then it just didn't feel right. So in the end, what happened was I ended up scrapping all of the other material, and then I just had to stick to the basics, stick to the core of it. So it took like almost a year for me to edit the film, like logging all the raw footage, and then kind of filtering out the stuff that I didn't want, and then just creating a structure out of the material. It took a lot of time.
Okay, would you want to tease any of the storylines you had to throw out, or are you going to use those in the future?
I mean, honestly, like apart from Anna's story, I had interviews with other folks as well. Like I had interviews with lawyers, with journalists. It was more of like a informative sort of a piece where I was just gathering them for my own research purposes, which I thought initially could be part of the film to kind of maybe to provide a bit more context, to provide a little bit more information as to what was happening in the area. But then I ended up deciding not to use them.
Would you ever want to make another edit a bit longer, or are you just fine with the 24 minutes?
I think for now I'm fine at 24 minutes, but I don't know, maybe in the future. probably if I get that inkling again towards it, I might dig back and play around with it.
Okay. I have honestly, like, I feel like I've been doing like a lot of like interviews for documentaries lately, and I've gotten much more respect for the editing that goes into it, just learning about all the footage that you have to comb through. And then you find this little focused story. So that's pretty neat to me.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it is definitely hard because we don't have a script. We're basically writing the film at the stage of editing. So it's the process is a little different for sure.
Yeah, and like, what is that process? Do you like that process better for you than because I know you've done a bunch of like scripted shorts.
Right. I think so. I think right now because maybe my headspace is around the non-fiction zone, I'm beginning to like the spontaneity of it, or the uncertainty of it. It's like you're in this dark tunnel and you just see some light somewhere in the distance, and you're somehow finding your way towards it. So I feel it's a little bit of like the sculpting, like you don't really know the final form, but you have to kind of figure it out.
I like that. Okay.
As you're going. So yeah, I would say I'm really enjoying the editing part of it for sure.
And was there ever a time, just like when you were filming, where you were getting like a really good shot, like a really good moment, and you were like, okay, like I'm definitely going to use that.
Absolutely, there were a lot of moments. I mean, if you've seen the film, there's countless moments, especially I think the moment where her daughter has decided to pay Anna a visit. And we were just so fortunate to just be in that moment. It was just a privilege to just point the camera at that moment and just to capture it at the right instant. So there were many such moments like that.
Okay, cool. Now, were the villagers kind of like hostile, like for like a documentary crew coming in, or were they welcoming?
They were definitely not welcoming for sure because we were all outsiders. They didn't know what we were there for. But I mean, that being said, we figured out a way to. I mean, we went there at a time when all the men in the village left to do farming, especially during a time frame in the day. Okay. So that was our time frame to kind of go spend time with Anna and come back soon.
Okay. So that was just by design to go when they were all on.
Yeah, just to kind of not create more conflict or to not create more trouble for anyone. We felt that was okay. The safest way to ensure that there's no trouble.
Okay, that's kind of intense. So you had like a certain time frame to get in, get out.
Yep.
Jeez. Were there any days where you kind of lost track of time to get out?
I mean, there was obviously one night where we decided to spend the night because we wanted to document the space at nighttime. Okay. And I think that's the ending portion of the film where she's singing a song with her family members. So that was when they were back, and we had to. I mean, we kind of pretended that we're just tourists coming here to take a look and whatnot, and then luckily there wasn't much big of a trouble. Like I think we were able to leave peacefully.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But it was intense. There was some sort of tension underneath, and that there was some tension.
Okay, so like kind of like the lawyer kind of like warned you, like, okay, this might be bad at times.
Yeah, that feeling when like, oh, things might go wrong any moment now, but thankfully nothing happened.
Okay, good. Now, do you know if Anna's seen the film?
Not yet, not yet. Because when I left the village, she kind of told me like she's vomited out everything that she wanted to. And it was my job now to take the film out to the world. And I don't even want to show her the film because I'm also a bit scared to, because I don't want her to relive through her voice telling what has happened to her. I would rather show her what the film has done, or to how many people the film has reached. I would show her the acknowledgements of the film rather than the film itself.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of sorrow, and you could just hear the heartbreak in her voice that like her village kind of just turned against her, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there's some. I want to talk about the cinematography. What was that like capturing? Because like, there's some really nice like nature shots here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, the cinematography wise, it was we had like a definite sort of style. Like we knew what we wanted to capture and how, and it's got to do with stillness. We decided there shouldn't be movement in the film, right? Like so there was that rule of stillness, and then with the stillness within the stillness we explored this sort of wide angled cinematography where you kind of document a particular landscape or particular character uh, in their big scope, right? We see these wide angled frames, and they kind of really start to give the audience more time to read into the image. So that was and that way we design the visuals and the pacing, and that's where the style kicked in.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. They definitely get the scope of it. I mean, I think it adds like production value too, right? With the nature shots.
Yeah, I mean it's not just for the production value per se, but I think somehow the nature felt right to kind of juxtapose with her voice. And it was also I think me as an editor trying to spiritually connect Anna to the nature. Like even though she's not present visually, but you can see her voice echoing through these landscapes, through these natures, as if she's healing them by telling her sorrowful testimony. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, that's kind of beautiful. That makes sense. I like that. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, and kind of gives it that poetic sense too, right?
yeah, yeah, and I think it somehow it felt right. I mean, obviously the idea kicked in the editing stage when I was playing around with a lot of different juxtapositions, but uh, this felt right and true.
Okay, and when did you film this?
I filmed it in 2019,
Okay.
which is yeah, a year and a half ago.
Oh, okay. Okay. So then, yeah, and then you mentioned there was about a year of editing.
Year of editing. Yeah, I finished the film last year around October-ish.
Okay. Did you celebrate after all that time?
Oh yeah, yeah. I had to just for my own sanity. I had to stop it and celebrate.
Just
So
just unwind. What did you do to celebrate?
nothing. I think I didn't touch my editing software for a few months. I was just watching movies, watching other films, and I didn't bother to come back to it. It's like I've given that break between myself and the film.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Now that it's finished and it's on the festival circuit right now, right?
That's correct. That's correct. We just had the world premiere, which is currently ending in 2 days. I think on May 9th, Hot Docs concludes. And then we are having a European premiere coming up from May 30th.
Okay. And that's the Krakow Film Festival?
Yeah, that's in Krakow, in Poland.
Krakow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you excited for that?
I am. I think it'll be very, I don't know, it's totally different set of audience, and I'm really excited and curious to see how the film connects to them and how they'll receive the film. I'm very much looking forward to their thoughts and responses.
What have been some of your favorite reactions from hot dogs?
I think it's I randomly get Instagram messages saying, "Hey, I've seen your film, really good work. Like thanks for making." There's stuff like that. I think there's so much love for it, which I'm very happy about. And but because unfortunately it's a virtual festival, it's not like an in-person event where I get to interact with them one-on-one. But because it's a virtual festival, for me to even gauge that response is a little difficult, because I don't even know how many people have seen it or have. Sure. It's only when I get these messages personally that I'm very happy about.
Now, when you see that little message preview, like on Instagram, do you feel like a bit of anxiety?
It does, right? Like anyone would feel that anxiety, and it's also maybe some sort of I don't know. It's a feeling that the film is being acknowledged, the film is being seen, the film is touching their hearts. So it is important for me to know, and definitely I'm always nervous and anxious every time someone sees it.
True. Yeah, and since it's Hot Docs is in Canada, so you're only getting the Canadian docs kind of right now.
That's correct. Unfortunately, it's geo-blocked to Canada, and I think it's the same thing with Krakow as well. It's only geo-blocked to Poland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know if there's going to be any like American or Indian premieres even?
Yeah, I think we're just waiting to hear back from certain festivals.
Okay.
Like we've submitted to some American and some Indian festivals, but we're just waiting to hear back.
But do you have anything else you wanted to plug?
No, I would say, thank you for having this conversation about the film, and I hope someday the film reaches to the audience and they'll be able to watch it and have a dialogue around it.
Yeah, and get those reactions back to Anna as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll have you stay on. So, would you mind saying your name? Sachin. Sachin Dheeraj Mudigonda.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Okay, Sachin Dheeraj Mudigonda.
Okay, Sachin Dheeraj Mudigonda. Thank you for chatting with me on the Film Crazy Show about your short documentary testimony of Anna.
Thank you, Daniel.